While I was fighting to survive, he was fighting to hide his affair. I spent 9 months in and out of hospitals, chemo, radiation, the works. 9 months where my husband held my hand through every treatment, brought me soup when I couldn't keep anything down, and whispered that everything would be okay. 9 months where I thought I was the luckiest woman alive to have someone who loved me that much. What I didn't know was that he'd been planning his exit strategy since the day I got diagnosed. And the woman he was planning it with? My maid of honor. I met David when I was 26 and thought I had the world figured out. He was charming in that quiet way that sneaks up on you, the kind of man who remembers how you take your coffee and actually listens when you talk about your day. We dated for 3 years before he proposed, and I remember thinking we were building something real, something that would last. Our wedding was small but perfect. Sarah, my best friend since college, stood beside me in pale pink silk. She caught my bouquet and joked that she'd be next. David's family welcomed me like I'd always belonged there. His mother even gave me her grandmother's pearl necklace, said I was the daughter she'd always wanted. For 5 years, we lived this comfortable life. David worked in finance. I taught elementary school. We had our little routines. Saturday morning farmers markets, Sunday dinners with his parents. We talked about kids, about buying a bigger house, about growing old together. Normal dreams for normal people. But I started noticing small things. David working late more often. Phone calls he'd step outside to take. He'd come home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine, but when I mentioned it, he'd laugh and say it must be from the elevator at work. You know how those office buildings recycle air, he'd say. I trusted him. Why wouldn't I? We'd built 5 years together. We had joint bank accounts, shared dreams, his mother's pearls in my jewelry box. Then I found the lump. It was a Tuesday morning. I was getting dressed for work when I felt it. Small, hard, wrong. I stood in our bathroom mirror for what felt like hours, just staring at my reflection. David was already downstairs making coffee, humming some song I didn't recognize. The mammogram confirmed what I already knew. Breast cancer, stage 2. Aggressive but treatable, the doctor said. Like that word, treatable, could somehow make the fear disappear. When I told David that night, he held me while I cried. He promised we'd fight it together. He even took time off work to come to my first oncology appointment. Sat in that sterile waiting room, holding my hand, researching treatment options on his phone. We've got this, he kept saying. We've got this. And I believed him. The next few months became a blur of treatments and side effects and small victories. David transformed into this incredible caregiver. He'd drive me to chemo appointments, wait through the 3-hour infusions, bring me home, and make sure I took my anti-nausea meds. When my hair started falling out, he helped me pick out wigs. When I was too tired to cook, he'd order from my favorite restaurant. Sarah was amazing too. She'd come over with face masks and old movies, trying to keep my spirits up. She even organized a meal train with our friends, making sure we had home-cooked food every night. Sometimes I'd catch her and David in the kitchen together, planning my care like they were running a military operation. You're so lucky to have him, she'd say, watching David arrange my medications for the week. He's handling this like a champion. And he was. At least, that's what I thought. By month 6, the treatments were working. My tumor markers were dropping. The scans looked good. My oncologist started using words like remission and recovery. I began to believe I might actually beat this thing. That's when I started planning the celebration. Not just for surviving, but for us surviving. I wanted to do something special for David, to thank him for being my rock through the worst time of my life. I thought about renewing our vows, maybe a small ceremony in our backyard with just family and close friends. I mentioned it to Sarah first. What do you think about a vow renewal? Something intimate? Maybe in the spring when my hair grows back? She got this strange look on her face. Just for a second. Then she smiled and said, it sounded beautiful. I started secretly planning. Nothing elaborate. Just a way to celebrate our love surviving the hardest test life could throw at us. I researched photographers, looked at simple white dresses that would work with my changing body. I even called David's mother to ask about borrowing the pearl necklace again. Oh, honey, she said, her voice warm through the phone. David didn't tell you. He borrowed that necklace a few months ago, said it was for a surprise. My heart did this little flutter. He was planning something too. Maybe he'd had the same idea. Maybe he wanted to surprise me with a renewal ceremony of his own. I felt so hopeful, so grateful, like we were going to come out of this nightmare stronger than ever. The funny thing about hope is how it can make you blind to what's right in front of you. My last chemo treatment was on a Thursday in March. David brought champagne to the infusion center. The good stuff. The bottle we'd been saving for our anniversary. The nurses cheered when I rang the bell, and David kissed me right there in front of everyone. We did it, he whispered against my ear. We actually did it. That weekend, I was feeling good enough to clean house for the first time in months. Really clean, not just David's surface tidying. I decided to tackle our bedroom, strip the bed, vacuum under furniture I hadn't moved in ages. That's when I found David's other phone. It had slipped between the mattress and the headboard. One of those cheap prepaid phones you can buy at any gas station. The kind people use when they don't want their calls traced. My hands were shaking when I turned it on. 47 text messages. All from S. All from the last 6 months. The same 6 months I'd been fighting for my life. Can't wait to see you tonight. Usual place? She's at chemo until 3. Come over after. Do you think she suspects anything? I hate lying to her, but we're so close now. Just a few more months. The lawyer says the papers will be ready next week. Once she's better, we can make the move. I love you. This will all be over soon. S. Sarah. I sat on our bedroom floor holding that phone, reading months of planning. They'd been meeting at her apartment during my treatment days, making plans for after I recovered, talking about divorce papers, about starting fresh, about how I'd understand eventually. There were photos too. David and Sarah at restaurants I'd never been to, in bed together. In her bed, the one with the yellow comforter I'd helped her pick out at Target. The worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was how considerate they'd been, how they'd waited. They didn't want to leave me while I was sick. That would be cruel. They were going to wait until I was healthy again, until I could handle it. Like that made it better. Like caring for me through cancer while planning their future together was somehow noble. I heard David's key in the front door. Babe, I picked up Thai food. The pad Thai you like? I could hear him in the kitchen, unpacking containers, probably arranging everything on our good plates like he always did when he was trying to be thoughtful. I sat there for another 10 minutes just holding that phone, reading the messages over and over. There was one from just that morning. 3 more weeks and we can tell her. I'm so tired of pretending. 3 more weeks. They'd given themselves a timeline. Dinner's ready, David called up the stairs. I put the phone back where I found it, walked downstairs on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else, sat at our kitchen table and ate pad Thai while my husband told me about his day at the office. How are you feeling? He asked, the same question he'd asked every day for 9 months. Any nausea, fatigue? I'm good, I said. Really good, actually. Strong. He smiled and reached across the table to squeeze my hand. I'm so proud of you. You've been incredible through all this. I squeezed back. We both have. That night, he held me while I pretended to sleep, and I stared at the ceiling, planning. They thought I was weak, the sick wife who needed taking care of, the woman who'd be grateful they waited until she was healthy to destroy her life. They had no idea what 9 months of fighting death had actually taught me about strength. I spent the next 2 weeks being the perfect recovering wife. I got stronger every day, started cooking again, even went back to work part-time. David seemed so relieved, proud of how well I was handling everything. You're amazing, he'd say, watching me make breakfast or fold laundry. I was so scared we'd lose this. Lose us. Sarah came by regularly, bringing flowers, helping with groceries. She'd hug me and say how grateful she was that I was okay, how worried she'd been. I don't know what I would have done if something happened to you, she said one afternoon, tears in her eyes. You're like a sister to me. I let her cry. I even hugged her back, but I was also making plans. I called David's mother first. About that vow renewal I mentioned. I want to make it happen, soon, like next weekend. Something small, just family and a few close friends. Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful. David will be so surprised. That's the idea, I said. Can you help me keep it secret? I want to plan everything myself, make it perfect for him. She was thrilled to be part of the surprise, helped me book the little chapel where we'd gotten married, called David's siblings, his father, his grandparents. I handled my side. My parents, my sister, a few close friends. Should I call Sarah? She asked. I know how much she means to you. Actually, I said, I want to call her myself. She's going to be my maid of honor again. I called Sarah that evening. I need your help with something big, I said. I want to surprise David with a vow renewal ceremony. This Saturday, can you be my maid of honor again? There was this long pause. Then, of course. That's beautiful. He'll be so surprised. I hope so, I said. I really want to show him how much our marriage means to me. How grateful I am that we made it through everything together. I could almost hear her guilt through the phone. I spent the week shopping. Found a simple white dress, nothing fancy. Got my nails done. Had my hair styled around the wig I was still wearing. I even borrowed David's mother's pearls again. The ones he'd supposedly taken for a surprise months ago. Turned out she'd never seen them since. Saturday morning, I called David at the gym. Hey, can you do me a favor? I need you to pick up Sarah and meet me at Sacred Heart Chapel at 2 o'clock. I have a surprise planned. What kind of surprise? The good kind. Trust me. Just wear the Navy suit. The one from our wedding. He laughed. You're being mysterious. I learned from the best, I said. At 2 o'clock, I was standing at the altar in my white dress and borrowed pearls. The chapel was full. Both our families smiling and whispering about how romantic this was. How sweet that I wanted to celebrate our love after everything we'd been through. David walked in with Sarah beside him. I watched his face when he saw me. The confusion, then recognition, then this forced smile as he realized what was happening. Sarah looked like she might be sick. Surprise, I said into the microphone the pastor had set up. I wanted all of you here today to celebrate something very important with David and me. David started walking toward me, that fake smile still plastered on his face. Sarah hung back near the door. The last 9 months have been the hardest of my life. I continued, my voice steady and clear. I learned things about myself I never knew. About strength, about survival, about who I can really trust. The room was quiet now. David had stopped walking. I also learned things about my husband and about my best friend. I pulled out the prepaid phone. I learned that while I was fighting for my life, they were planning their life together, meeting during my chemo appointments, making love in her bed while I was too sick to leave mine, planning to wait until I recovered to tell me, because they're not monsters, you see, they're just people who fell in love while watching me almost die. You could hear people breathing. David's face had gone completely white. Sarah, I said, looking directly at her, would you like to come up here? Since you're going to be his wife anyway? She actually ran out of the chapel. David stood there in the middle of the aisle, surrounded by his family and mine, holding everyone's shocked stares. The thing is, I said, still speaking into that microphone, I don't want him anymore. I don't want a man who plans his next life while holding my hand through cancer. I don't want someone who thinks I'm too weak to handle the truth. I took off his grandmother's pearls and set them on the altar. These belong to your family, Schno, I told him. Everything else, the house, the cars, the bank accounts, we can sort out with lawyers, but right now I just want everyone to know who you really are. I walked down that aisle in my white dress, past families who'd loved me for 7 years, past the man I'd thought would love me forever. At the door, I turned back. Oh, and David. The divorce papers are already filed. I had them served to your office yesterday. Irreconcilable differences. I left him standing there in his navy suit, surrounded by the ruins of both our reputations. That was 8 months ago. David married Sarah in a courthouse ceremony 6 weeks after our divorce was finalized. No family present this time. His mother sends me Christmas cards now, but not them. I kept the house, kept my job, started dating again last month. A colleague from school who thinks my short hair is beautiful and doesn't know me as the cancer wife or the woman who got cheated on. Just knows me as me. Some people think what I did was cruel. Public humiliation instead of private conversation. They say I should have handled it with more dignity. But here's what I learned about dignity. It's not about suffering in silence. It's not about protecting people who hurt you. Dignity is knowing your worth and refusing to accept less. David texts sometimes, usually late at night, usually drunk. Apologies mixed with accusations. How I embarrassed him. How I ruined his relationship with his family. How if I just talked to him privately, everything could have been different. He still doesn't get it. Sarah blocked me on everything, but mutual friends tell me she's not happy. Turns out building a relationship on someone else's pain doesn't create the strongest foundation. Who knew? I'm not angry anymore. That's the strangest part. I was furious for months. At them, at cancer, at the unfairness of everything. But anger is exhausting, and I'd already been exhausted enough for one lifetime. Now I just feel free. Free from pretending everything was fine. Free from people who saw my illness as an inconvenience to work around. Free from a marriage that was already over before I even knew it. They thought I was weak because I was sick. Thought I'd be grateful for their consideration, their timeline, their careful planning. But cancer taught me something they never learned. The difference between surviving and living. He thought I was weak until I stood up in white. And now I know exactly how strong I really am.